What's up everyone, Jimmy here from Base Game Reviews, and today we're diving into the surprise out of nowhere remaster of Bethesda's 2006 magnum opus, Oblivion. Now rebuilt in the questionable Unreal Engine 5, does it prove that Oblivion was the Elden Ring of the 2000s? Or are we just looking through rose-tinted nostalgia? Let's find out in our review of Oblivion Remastered. How I played. I played Oblivion via Xbox Game Pass for PC on my R7 7800 X3D RTX 3080 gaming PC. I was playing on a mix of high settings with shadows on medium at 1440p with lumen disabled and DLSS on balanced. I also used RE shade to bring the game closer to the original colors. Before we kick off this review, I want to admit I have never played any of the Elder Scrolls games. I never even played Skyrim. And my first introduction to a Bethesda game was Starfield in 2023. And let me just say, Starfield did not make a great first impression on me when it comes to the coveted Bethesda charm. However, I am a sucker for games set in a fantasy world with knights, castles, and magic, so with the shadow drop of Oblivion Remaster, I was definitely intrigued to give this 2000 game a try. After the letdown that was Avowed, I hoped Oblivion would be a better first-person RPG than what I previously experienced. Story, 15 out of 20. Oblivion starts with a monologue voiced by the iconic Sir Patrick Stewart. I forgot that games in the mid and early 2000s often brought in big name actors for voice acting. He introduces himself as Emperor Uriel Septim and delivers a fantastic introduction to the game's world and driving plot. The gates of Oblivion are opening and evil plans to take over the land of Tamriel. You, the player character, are imprisoned in the castle jail, conveniently in a cell with a secret path leading to the outside city. This is your introduction to the Emperor. You're then taken to the character creator, which apparently has had major improvements, but I found it difficult to make a character that looks conventionally appealing rather than grotesque. You're quickly introduced to the game's basic controls through simple combat situations, fighting basic rats and goblins in the castle sewers. I really enjoy this intro because it drips with early millennium charm. Also, spoiler, the Emperor dies in the most hilarious South Park fashion ever. It reminded me of the Satan's Sweet 16 episode where the serial killers had to pick up Satan's Ferrari cake and kept killing people.
Do you gentlemen need a hand? Casey!
Cutscenes. The cutscenes I immediately recognized from Starfield, so that means Bethesda has not changed their cutscene style in 17 plus years. They are that zoomed in camera pan of the NPC's face and it moves back and forth between whomever's talking. But Oblivion does have some environmental cutscenes for major story events, but they're very PS2 era, so pretty underwhelming for modern games. I don't know if it's a charm or just carelessness that in 2006 they left in an NPC voice line that is the actor essentially doing a redo, but it is funny that they decided to keep it in the remaster to stay true to the OG. I like that. World building. Oblivion excels at world building thanks to its awesome introduction. If you have Sir Patrick Stewart narrate anything, it will massively improve its quality. You also get bits and pieces of story from NPC dialogue and side quests. There are also journal entries you can find and read. Considering the game released in 2006, it was basically the mid-2000s Elden Ring. The overall story of Oblivion is a classic, tried and true fantasy trope, but it works. In today's era of modern storytelling, this classic trope feels refreshing. My only real criticism is that there's no true antagonist with a climactic buildup. It's like the enemy is just the land of Mordor without a Sauron. Still, I had fun, and you could see a ton of influence in this game story. There's even a Return of the King style epic battle speech in Oblivion. Cinema. However, the game just ends abruptly. When I rolled credits, I was like, what? Wait, that was it? Graphics, 11 out of 15. The character models received a nice facelift with UE5 graphics update, and everything looks decent in Oblivion. All the characters retain their original Bethesda charm. I can't help but imagine how impressive this was in 2006. When I look at Martin Septim, I see Boromir, conveniently voiced by Sean Bean. The art direction for the character models may not be my thing, but they look good. All the monster and lizard class NPCs look fantastic. However, as mentioned earlier, it's far easier to make a hideous character than an attractive one. Environments. I was genuinely surprised by the biome environment diversity in Oblivion. This game was released almost 20 years ago, so having an open world title like this was probably a massive technical achievement. I would have been forgiving it if the biome selection was limited, but there are green fields, snowy mountains, flaming volcanoes, dark tombs, and many more location variants. There's also a weather and time of day system, allowing for some amazing vistas during gameplay. The updated UE5 graphics layer really upped the presentation. When I was running in the open world up a mountainside and I could vividly see the Aurora Borealis in the sky, I was like, whoa.
Aurora Borealis! At this time of year, at this time of day, in this part of the country, localized entirely within your kitchen.
Special effects. With the UE5 uplift, I was a bit disappointed by some of the effects. I think it was more about staying true to the original while updating effects for modern tech. For instance, some fire particle effects look 2D and cheap when closing an Oblivion gate. For how taxing this game is, I wasn't really wowed by anything. UE5 has a signature look and it's hard to deviate from it. Not every game can be Claire Obscure Expedition 33, but still, I wish they tried harder. Audio, 11 out of 15. I love the ambience in Oblivion. Just standing in an open field, I could feel the adrenaline of adventure flowing through me. The planets aligned for Bethesda, and they nailed it with Oblivion. The OST, the story, the voice acting worked together seamlessly. While playing, I had my headphones on and the Lord of the Rings trilogy playing silently on another display. I was fully immersed in this world. Boss music. There aren't many bosses in Oblivion. You encounter some elite enemies with generic combat music, which is disappointing. The end finale has an alternate version of the game's intro track, which was perfect. I just wish there was more of this during the campaign or side missions. Sound design. The voice acting is both campy and terrible and amazingly awesome. I think this is the Bethesda charm people speak of. In the same game, you have the iconic voices of Sir Patrick Stewart and Sean Bean, but you also have some of the worst voice acting I have ever heard in a game since Assassin's Creed Shadows.
Resentment can grow quietly without much warning after a storm.
Also, you can tell they use the same voice actor to play like 20 different roles in the game, but with all the faults, there's still a charm, and you sort of forgive all the janky, ridiculous voice acting in the game. I think Bethesda assumed we would let them get away with this kind of thing for all of their games going forward. Performance, 6 out of 10. Frame rate. I was able to get a decent frame rate even with my aging GPU. At 1440p with my modified high settings, I always turn shadows to medium as shadows are always usually the most taxing. I was able to get mostly 70 to 90 FPS. I also had Luma disabled as I didn't feel the slight lighting quality enhancements were worth the dip in performance. And I had DLSS set to balance. After watching Digital Foundry's breakdowns on console, it was disappointing to see how much this game struggled to hit a consistent 60 FPS in performance mode. The game has since been updated since I wrote this review, and the performance still hasn't improved that much, which is especially disappointing. Oblivion is full of jank and random bugs that originate from the 2006 original. I think it was a cool choice to keep all the game's original bugs in, so fans of the original could experience them all over again in higher fidelity. During my playthrough, I was near the end of the game and I was doing one of the final fetch missions. After I left this catacomb, I noticed I couldn't fast travel, so I thought to myself, oh, it's one of these where the final mission disables fast travel and you have to run back to the main hub on foot. Nope. I was wrong. Turns out, one random zombie I didn't kill in the catacomb was chasing me, and I had to wait in-game for it to catch up to me so I could kill it, and then finally I was able to fast travel. That's Bethesda charm for you, baby. All of that is okay. What was a big letdown was the dreaded UE5 traversal stutters and shader comp stutters. Digital Foundry did a great breakdown of this, as I did find it annoying. It didn't render the game unplayable for me, and since Oblivion Remake peaked at about 1.4 million concurrent players and held a steady streak of over 100k per day, I think a lot of other people didn't mind too much either. Gameplay, 27 out of 40. I don't know if they updated Oblivion's controls from the 2006 original, but I gotta say, they felt extremely close to Starfield's controls. I found it funny that Bethesda has not updated their control scheme too drastically in over 16 years. The shortcut wheel wasn't that fluent for me in practice, but all the other controls flowed and worked well for an open world RPG like this. I also felt really comfortable having played Avowed recently. Mechanics. I do find Bethesda's RPG mechanics a little cumbersome, with all of their player backgrounds as well as classes, but I enjoyed the basic RPG mechanics, and it really reminded me of PS2 days of dungeon looters. Find enemies and kill them, take their stuff, fight bigger enemies, rinse, repeat. Pacing. There is a lot of side quests you can go do, but you don't have to do any of them. I will admit, I did look up where to go quickly get the most OP weapons and gear right after the tutorial, and I basically steamrolled through the entire game. But I love the choice of being able to do that. I hate when games soft lock you to a certain path and try to prevent savvy players from getting OP too early. UI UE. It was nice to see that the UI UE was minimal and not a giant eyesore constantly on the screen. I also loved how certain menu items fade out when not needed. I also found navigating basic menus was simple and easy to do. My only small gripe was status ailments. I know some people love this, but I hated not knowing exactly what ailment I had or what I needed to do to fix it. Near the end of the game, I noticed I was doing barely any damage, only to find out I was sick with a few ailments, and I had purchased every potion I could find and nothing fixed it. I slept for a bunch of time, still nothing. Then I had to look up online and I had to go buy a specific ingredient to cure my ailments. Super annoying. Boss quality. I won't lie, the bosses are a massive letdown. There aren't really any bosses in Oblivion, kinda like Starfield. There may be some NPCs or elite type enemies with extra health. That's pretty much it. The final boss is just a cinematic showpiece and not really a true boss fight at all. Bethesda really sucks at bosses in their games. Enemy variety. I know I'm judging a game that is 19 years old, but yeah, the enemy variety is just basic human NPCs and Oblivion demon NPCs, and some odd skeletons, rats, lizards, and the odd bear or sometimes a troll. I found that you don't encounter enough variety in each dungeon. It's just a lot of the same type, which makes it feel even more basic. Gameplay variety. There is an insane amount of side quests you can do in Oblivion, and they range from go get a thing or go kill a thing, and they're all quirky and have their charm with some of their jankiness. You can also buy a house or find one for free and deck it out to your liking. Or you could just skip all that and go straight to the next story quest. The choice is yours. But if you don't like doing nothing quests for mostly subpar gear, then the gameplay variety is kind of limited in Oblivion. At first, I was closing all of the Oblivion gates I encountered, and this started to get old fast, as each Oblivion gate is the same auto-generated map from a pool of like 5 different Oblivion gates types. Then I was surprised to find out I didn't actually have to close all of the gates, and there was a story specific mission where I had to close like 6 of them. And by that time, I was pretty over closing Oblivion gates. Replayability. To me, Oblivion and Bethesda games that I've played are games that you can just keep playing with a single save file. There isn't really a reason to start a new playthrough unless you were just looking to experience story moments again. But it is very easy to make a hybrid character and max out all the different stats, so you can just switch between stealth, magic, melee seamlessly. So again, no reason to start a new playthrough. Bonus, 0 out of 3. This game is from 2006, and there are no accessibility options. I was pretty surprised to see that none have been added to this remaster, so no bonus points here. Overall, 70 out of 100, fair. The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remaster is a portal to 2006 gaming with a fresh coat of paint. It's funny how this game is definitely a product of its time, but it's also eye-opening to see that Bethesda has barely changed the functionality and mechanics of their games in over 19 years. I will commend the devs devs on making this remaster true to the original, as that is bold to not want to make changes. And I'm sure this was a delight for fans of the 2006 original. This is Bethesda's Demon's Souls remake, except they called it remaster.